Today we're chatting with Chris Rusch. Also joining us is Mike Wagner of Cornfield Customs. We are here at Bailey Industrial Metal Shaping Fest.
There wasn't many people doing metal shaping back when we first initiated all this, and I created a machine which I thought was vital to making this happen.
And that was my exposure to power hammer stuff was here, and I bought one and it opened up a gateway of, I guess, bad decisions in metal shaping.
I'd pay to watch that movie.
It opened up a whole new area that I didn't know existed.
There was nothing out there that the average guy could buy. We kind of brought metal shaping back to the forefront and made power hammering and all this stuff affordable to the average guy.
Today's episode is brought to you by Bailey Industrial, where precision meets durability in metalworking machinery. Since 1999, Bailey has been designing and building machines that not only perform, but last for decades. They don't just follow industry standards, they set them. And when you buy from Bailey, many of the features other brands treat as extras come standard, because top-tier performance shouldn't be optional. And here's the best part. Most Bailey machines are in stock and can ship within 72 hours, so you can stop waiting and start building. Remember, when you join the Bailey Army, you are not just getting top-tier tools, you are stepping into the spotlight. And now, back to the episode.
Hello, welcome to this episode of the Fabricator Podcast. My name is Dan Davis with the Fabricator Magazine, and this is
Lincoln Bruner with the Tube and Pipe Journal.
Thank you for joining us today. We are here at Bailey Industrial Metal Shaping Fest. Big weekend for the folks here as they bring in people from all over, both instructors and students.
In the wonderful state of Wisconsin.
Yes, city being
Manitowoc.
There you go. And that is where on a map?
It's on midway up the western seaboard of Lake Michigan.
And what's it famous for?
Famous for the Wisconsin Maritime Museum, Kingsbury beer, World War II submarines.
And Bailey Industrial.
And Bailey Industrial.
Very good.
Thank you.
So today we're chatting with Chris Rusch, formerly of Rusch Machine Design, a company in Bailey Industrial purchased in 2018. He developed machines that are used in metal shaping. The one that occupies a little bit of this conversation is his power hammer.
Yeah, MH19.
Yes. You figure after 45 minutes I would remember that. But yeah, I think you'll enjoy this conversation. Also joining us is Mike Wagner of Cornfield Customs, who's an avid user of not only that machine, but the technology in general to kind of create forms for hot rods, custom cars, but even aerospace applications. It's kind of a fun conversation. The one thing I'll mention before we get to the actual conversation is that Mike drove to Manitowoc, Wisconsin from the Cincinnati area in a Ford GT.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, if you know the car from Ford and Ferrari, it's kind of funny that he took cross-country chip in it that wasn't officially a cannonball run type event.
Unbelievable. And it's an eye catcher out in the parking lot. You see Nissans and Hondas out there. All of a sudden you see a GT40 sitting there. You're expecting Christian Bale to jump out of it, but it's the idea that you would take a car like that on a highway with all the other very, oatmeal cars that we all drive.
So we get into some kind of automotive conversation toward the latter part of the conversation. I think people find interesting. My favorite part is before we ended the conversation, or after the conversation, we offered Mike a T-shirt, and he said he didn't have enough room in the car. So, I mean, I don't know. To each his own as you choose modes of transportation to go visit your friends. But GT might not be the best example of comfort in travel.
Well, if Carroll Shelby in the movie can fit Henry Ford II in a GT, certainly this guy could fit a T-shirt. Come on.
All representatives of the Ford company can call Lincoln directly. Thank you.
That's right.
Yeah, and before we go, once again, thanks to Bailey Industrial for hosting us.
Absolutely.
Really enjoyed the short time we were here for Metal Shaping Fest. So you'll enjoy this conversation with both Chris and Mike, and please stay tuned. Thanks.
Attention marketers and advertisers. Want to reach the manufacturing industry more effectively? Don't miss FMA's free Marketing and Advertising Summit happening June 25th in Elgin, Illinois. Gain exclusive industry insights and network with marketing leaders. Learn from top experts and discover cutting-edge strategies to maximize your brand's impact. Spots are limited. Register now at fmamfg.org.
Welcome back. Big thanks to Chris Rusch, formerly of Rusch Machine Design, who used to build equipment before it was sold off to Bailey Industrial, which is the perfect segue to thank Bailey Industrial for having us today here at Metal Shaping Fest in Manitowoc, Wisconsin. We also have here today Mike Wagner of Cornfield Customs. He's very gracious enough to wear his company's name on his shirt to help me out. So thank you very much for doing that. Lincoln Bruner's here as well. So we're here at Bailey Industrial's Metal Shaping Fest. Can you give us an idea of your role here as instructors and maybe what you'll be touching upon while you're here?
Yeah, you can go first.
Yeah, so typically we do a lot of these in the last, what do you want to say, Mike, 5-10 years, I guess. We've done quite a few of these metal shaping events.
I think it's been more than that. I think I've been up here 15.
Maybe it's 15
years.
So,
wow.
We're getting old.
So we've been doing a lot of them, and my role is more of kind of a history and a lesson on how the machines function.
Okay.
So I give a history on the power hammer, how it was created, and how we brought that machine to market back when we felt this industry, I use this term loosely, it was dead. Okay, so there wasn't many people doing metal shaping back when we first initiated all this.
Okay.
And I created a machine which I thought was vital to making this happen. So my initial portion of these metal shaping events is I go through the history of how the machine was created, what my desires were to make it into what it was, and then we kind of expand on how the machine functions, what it does, and how it can help the fabricator.
Yeah.
And then I make my sample piece to go through all the functions of the machine. This particular time, I'm making a hood scoop for a Cobra.
Oh, wow.
So that's kind of my demo. And then I let the real professionals take over, the guys that do it day to day, every day. And then they take over and do their demonstrations, which are more involved with mine. Mine are more descriptive and based on function of machine and how and all the things that it can do to help you, basically.
Yeah. And how do you go about demonstrating your expertise?
So it depends on each class is going to be a little bit different. When I started out here, I was the bead roller guy.
No kidding.
And like I've evolved over the years. Like I came up and was doing bead roller demonstrations and artwork, and then I got an MH19. That was my exposure to power hammer stuff was here, and I bought one, and it opened up a gateway of, I guess, bad decisions in metal shaping. Like it kind of,
I'd pay to watch that movie.
it opened up a whole new area that I didn't know existed. It sounds very like kind of weird, but it did. Like I could make things that I didn't know could even be made. So that it evolved, and then it started smaller power hammer stuff, and now it's, let's do big, incredible, impressive pieces. So like my demonstrations this weekend, I'm going to do half of a one-piece mini tub wheel well. So it'll be flat outer surface and then a bunch of shrinking to pull over about a 6-inch section to a complete 90 with a radius built into the corner. So we'll do that and do it from pattern, layout, what all the markings mean, what's happening while it's shrinking, how we shrink it, and then once we have it shrunk, how do we take it from looking like a wadded up mess into a finished piece. So I'll do that, and then we'll take a, I think, 10-15 minute break, and then we'll come back and do large low crown. So I'm going to do 2 aluminum 33-34 roof inserts.
Wow.
And everything's going to be super interactive, super hands-on. The shrinking, not so much. It'll be more, this is the process, this is the understanding, and answer as I go. And then with the roof insert, we'll be pulling people out of the crowd. Once I put a little bit of shape in it to make it a little more rigid, we'll let them give it a shot.
Yeah. How long have you been using kind of like power hammer technology, and what were you doing before? And I guess this kind of ties in with your introduction to metal fabricating.
Yeah. So, I mean, how far back do you want me to go? Like from the beginning?
I guess, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, this is
I'm
a long
kinda
story.
interested.
So like most people, and I'm sure you've heard this a lot over the years, my introduction to metal shaping was Jesse James' Motorcycle Mania 1.
Yeah.
I was a teenager, you get motorcycle gas tanks from the motorcycle gas tank store.
Right.
That's where they come from. Like you can't make that stuff. So I saw it on TV and I'm like, whoa, that's pretty cool. I didn't know that existed. And I grew up pretty low income, didn't have money to buy equipment or stuff. And I liked cars. So I was like, well, I got a rust hole this big. I can make that piece. Well, if I did one this big, can I make one this big? And then it evolved into making one-piece quarters. And like I said, when I came up here, I got exposed to the MH19, which is I think it's the best, most versatile, compact power hammer you can get. Nick and I were talking earlier, like the guy at home with a 2-car garage and a subdivision, you're going to squeeze a K90 Yoder in there? No.
Right.
But you can fit an MH19. It branches you out and gets you that exposure and the fundamentals, and then you can grow upon that if need be. And just over the years, everything compounded and got bigger and more complicated. And now it's, let's see if I can make this in one giant piece just because. And it's
Are you
been a journey.
completely self-taught?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I went to vocational school for welding and machining in high school, and I've been unemployable since. So I had to start my own company,
I mean, I would argue in this industry, there's a lot of entrepreneurialism based on numerous factors, but for the most part, people just kind of like working on their own.
Yeah.
And they need an outlet and they find it in a way.
Yeah, like my therapist says, it's oppositional defiance disorder. Like you can't tell
Right.
me what to do. Like you just can't.
No, I think there's something to that.
Well, there's
Yeah.
a lot of entrepreneurial defiance to a lot of
Yeah.
the people we talk to. Is like, well, I can do that better.
Yeah.
That starts with that idea, right? But when you're talking, in your case, you're talking about complex parts, but in a whole, say a car,
Yeah.
that you really have a vision for, right? So as a fabricator and a lover of all things that go fast, I mean, what are some things that you really love about, not only just the power hammer, but about shaping metal into the finished product?
I really like being able to take things from the raw. Like these classes are really good, and I do classes at my shop as well. And seeing somebody come in that is completely green, and you take a flat piece of metal and then you wad it up into this unrecognizable shape. Well, you can't fix that. That's junk. And then you do a couple of black magic moves on a machine. And you're like, wait a minute, this is a really nice finished piece. And like it takes that black magic that everybody is so intimidated by, and it makes it realistic, and you can see it step by step progress. And then it loses its luster of magic and makes it attainable.
Yeah.
And you'll see that happen throughout the weekend as people get started. A lot of people that come to these have zero metal shaping experience at all.
Okay.
Right.
They haven't touched anything. And like Mike is saying, it kind of blows your mind on this doesn't look fixable. And all of a sudden they'll see us work through parts and work the wrinkles out and start planishing things out. And all of a sudden, hey, it looks like a good part.
It is. There's something to creating that 3D kind of piece as opposed to something at a press brake which has sharp angles. You know what I mean? Impressive nonetheless, but see something with
It's
actual
completely different. Yeah.
curve. There's a lot of work to it. And it leads me to ask you, when was this dead period where you kind of found that no one really had knowledge or the tools to do some of this?
So years ago, I was helping a guy named Mark Garish, and I worked part-time for him, and he built Cobras from scratch.
Whoa.
So I was a high school kid working for this guy part-time, and I would go in and I would see these cars being built from flat sheets of metal into 427 Cobras, and my mind was, I'm like, how can this happen? How can this be done?
Yeah, is this real life right now? Like,
Yeah.
Are you Carroll Shelby? Who are you?
Well, it was made the same way that Carroll would have made them, is the
Yeah.
way he was making them.
Yeah.
And so that always stuck with me. And I always wanted to learn more about that craft, but there was nothing. There was no internet at the time. And at that time, the only way you could obtain a power hammer was to find a Yoder or a pettingill. And they were all in junkyards. Nobody even knew what they were for. A lot of times they would just be turned into scrap.
How were they making the shapes for the Cobra?
Well, they were. He had a...
Oh, that's where you saw it.
Yeah, that's where I saw
got you.
the power hammers and stuff. So me wanting to get into it, I'm like, well, where do I get a machine? And like I said, the only ones you would find would be in junkyards. You'd have to restore them. They're a bunch of money. They're giant machines. They wouldn't fit in garages. And that's where I say it was dead, because there was nothing out there that the average guy could buy
Right.
to be able to do this stuff. So I felt there was a big hole, a big void. So years had passed, and I didn't have the capability or the shop to do it all. But eventually I did end up with a shop and the capability to do this. And I'm like, I'm going to make a machine that was like a Yoder and a Pullmax, and I'm going to combine them, make them all one, and I'm going to make it so you can fit it in your garage and the average user can use it. So, I'm trying not to take credit for bringing anything back, but I kind of think we did.
Yeah.
We kind of brought metal shaping back to the forefront and made power hammering and all this stuff affordable to the average guy.
Yeah.
And, we did that for years. And then, the
When did
machine,
you kind of unveil your first?
so it's like
first machine?
2010.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
2010.
So it's kind of, I say relatively recent, but how it is for old people. Everything's
Yeah.
recent.
Well, I mean, when you put it on the grand scale of that, like a Yoder K90 and a Pettengill #1 or a 2 or a 2M, you're talking World War II era.
Yeah,
right,
and
right.
it's
So
funny the names you throw out, Yoder, Pullmax. I mean, those are
and you
not
have
necessarily
that
new
gap
names.
from, we'll just say 1950. We'll round up a little bit. 1950, when a lot of those companies went defunct,
Right.
to 2010. That is a huge gap.
That's a huge gap. So that's the term I'm loosely using is it was, like I say, dead maybe is the wrong term, but there just wasn't the availability for the average person to get into it.
The Power Hammer Dark Ages.
Yeah.
There you go. Maybe I should look for a better term.
We have a new title of this episode.
But in creating a machine, how did you go about that? I mean, that's a black box to me.
It is, and I mean, mechanical design is my forte, I guess.
Okay.
So I really enjoy designing machines and equipment and things like that. And at the time, I was building tubing benders, is kind of how Rusch Machine Design got its name.
Okay.
And that was our core business, was building tubing benders and tubing notchers, and that's
Were
what
you
put us on
cutting
the
the
map.
dies for those as well?
We were.
Yeah.
So we made them from scratch, complete machines. And the story of building tubing benders relates to the car world as well. So
Right.
the only reason I was building a tubing bender is because I was building a Lamborghini Countach from scratch.
As one does.
Yeah.
We hear that all the time.
And on that car, a lot of people are familiar with it, but back in the day, everybody had that car on their wall. Everybody wanted to build one, or I shouldn't say build one. Everybody wanted to own one.
Yeah.
Well, I couldn't afford one. I'm like, well, how am I going to obtain this car? I'm like, well, I'm going to build it. So I built it from scratch. Well, anyhow, the chassis, they call it the birdcage chassis, and it's all tube structure and stuff. And there's a handful of tubes on that chassis that need to be bent. The transmission hoop and a couple of things in the front bonnet that needed to be bent. I'm like, how am I going to bend these tubes? This is all pre-internet, all that stuff. And well, at that time I was a machine designer for a paper company. And I'm like, well, I design equipment every day. I'm just going to design my own machine to build the tubing bender. So I designed a tubing bender. And that's what kind of put me on the map as far as building a company to build that type of equipment.
Is it around that same time, like late 2000s?
No, that was 1998.
Okay, all right.
That was
Wow.
but I always had this power hammer stuff in the back of my head, but I wasn't doing, when I first made the power hammer, I wasn't doing it to make money and have us, going for this market that I think is going to take off the world. I kind of wanted it more for myself and to prove that I could make a machine that didn't exist.
Right.
So it was a machine that didn't exist. I designed it, proved it out, and I'm like, okay, we can take this to market now. And then my friend Mark, that was doing the Cobras, he was doing Ford GT conversions at the time. And I brought him the very first machines to beat up and run through their paces, and he would beat the machines up, see where they would break and fail, and then I would improve them, make them better and better and better, till we got to the point where nothing was failing anymore.
Wow.
So these machines are trying to kill themselves, and when you have a lot of stuff, a lot of internals, because I wanted the machine to do multiple functions. So the MH19 does both power hammer function and Pullmax function.
Oh, okay.
So it has a spring mode and a rigid mode. So
Can you describe the two for people? who
yeah,
may
well,
not
so
know?
a power hammer mode means the top die is on a kind of floating, a whipping action. So as the machine accelerates, it builds up a dynamic motion, and it throws the die and has a hammering effect. So in Pullmax mode, and I use that term loosely, so rigid mode is another same way to describe it, is I put a pin through there. Basically, it deactivates the spring, and now the top die is fixed, and it just runs on a fixed stroke. So whatever you put between it, the gap is solid. And then I also built in the machine a bunch of adjustability. So I can adjust the stroke. I can adjust all this stuff on the fly as the machine is running.
No, what's the purpose of going from one to the other?
So power hammer mode actually takes the metal and it hammers it in a, depending upon what tool you have it in a, like an explosive fashion. So it stretches it,
Yeah. Yeah.
where pull max mode is a fixed height. And then you would put like, say, a forming tool that has a defined profile in between it. And it creates that defined profile as you're running metal through the two dies.
Okay.
So you can create a die that has a determined, say like a body line on a car. You can create a profile for that, put a male and female die in between the machine. It runs on that set height and your gap would be set to the material thickness. And as you run your metal through there, it puts in that profile on your metal as you're feeding it through.
Wow. Is that part of your presentation?
It is.
Like, yeah.
I do a little bit of that. I primarily lean on the power hammer side, but I go through all of that. I go through how the machine can do both and how to switch it over, how easy it is, how fast it is. And it's pretty cool.
So, Mike, when do you remember getting your first power hammer, and kind of where were you in your metal fabricating career at that time?
I'd been coming here a few years. I'm trying to think of what year that was. Maybe 2014. I think that's when I got the MH19. And like before then it was all, well, when did we do your car?
Oh, that was 15, I think.
Yeah, so
I think that was
15. I started with a Harbor Freight wheeling machine. And I'm really weird on terminology. So do you guys know what an English wheel is?
I've heard of it. I don't know.
So it's an upper and a lower wheel that you tighten the gap in it. You form metal through it, it squeezes it, and it follows the lower radius.
The roll form.
Yeah. If it's never been to England, I can't call that a English wheel. It's just a wheeling machine.
Right.
Harbor Freight has never been through England, so it's a wheeling machine.
Sure.
Right.
So I started with that and, making decent sized panels. And then we did a car build with Chris, and I picked up one of his large fabricated wheeling machines, and I had wheeled everything. And then I got the power hammer bug, and it changed everything.
Yeah.
So 14, 15-ish, I think, is when I got the hammer, and it just changed everything. I stopped using the wheel. I still have it, but it doesn't get used much. Everything is power hammer, like low crown, high crown, shrinking, stretching.
Did it come naturally to you, or was there an adjustment period?
No, there was a little bit of adjustment period. And like when I teach classes, a lot of it goes to the way your brain processes information. And I describe it a lot to music. If you're more of a smooth jazz, peaceful kind of music guy, you're going to be a wheel guy.
Yeah.
If you're like a Norwegian black metal violence, you're going to be a power hammer guy because it's loud, it's aggressive, there's a lot happening, it's dangerous.
Yeah.
And that's exciting, but it moves so quick.
Yeah.
And just the way like linear stretch work versus radial stretch work, one's tension based, one's more of a relaxed state. So you can do more complicated shapes by yourself on a power hammer than you can on a wheel. So it kind of, I think I had my hammer a week, and I made a set of 41 Chevrolet truck fenders.
No
kidding. That was my first power hammer job.
Wow.
And it made sense.
So that's for somebody else too. That wasn't even a personal project.
That wasn't personal.
Wow.
Yeah. And it clicked. Like you just get that one thing and everything just makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's like I still learn a lot, and like it's like everything. It's a constant learn, but everything just was a little bit more clear on the hammer versus on a wheel. Like on a wheel, everything is stretch based.
Yeah.
On a hammer, it could be stretch based or it could be shrink based. So when you tell people you're shrinking metal, it's kind of like, no, you can't. That's a solid. You can't do that. But when you understand how it works, and it's like a cheat code, like, well, instead of having to stretch over here to get this to act like it's shrinking, I'll just come over here and shrink this, and then I don't have to mess with anything over there.
Right.
It just gives you two different.
Can you describe shrinking in terms of, for a layman, how would you describe that, what's done to the metal?
So essentially what you're doing is you're upsetting the grains. You're taking them and you'll put what's a tuck. So on the power hammer, you can do this with hand tools as well. You'll put a tuck in. We are on film as well as audio, right? So you'll have a tuck that's kind of shaped like this, and you'll come in with the hammer and grab it here, and you're going to take the atoms and the grains and compress them. And you're sliding everything together on, microscopic scale, and you're making the material thicker.
So it's almost like a old school, I don't know what the term was, but like a weld, impact weld or something like that.
And like everybody thinks you're folding, but you're actually gathering and
you're
bunching.
Squeezing.
And you're pushing it together and rearranging how everything lays, grains and atoms wise, and it just makes the material
there's,
thicker.
Different terminology. Some people call it stack shrinking,
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
tuck shrinking, thumbnail shrinking. Those are all terms for the same process.
Stack shrinking makes the word picture makes sense in my mind, because
So you're
actually
building up material and then you're basically stacking it on top of itself and then compressing it back down.
but in one smooth motion inside a machine. It's like, wow.
Yeah, because like if you're doing it by hand, you have to use a tucking fork or a mallet. You're going to put a tuck in it, and then you close the tuck, and then you kind of close around the edge and work it in. Or on a power hammer, the machine is running, you feed it in, it creates the tuck. On the way out, it closes the tuck, and you're done.
And what common applications is this finding in your shop? Like when you're shrinking metal, why are you doing that?
Everything metallic is going to be comprised of some shape.
Sure.
So aircraft, boats, everything is going to have shape to it. So like say a one-piece wheel well. And for you guys just thinking about it, I use this a lot in my classes. If you think about moving metal, it's really complicated sounding. Think of it as we're not manipulating the metal, we're manipulating the light. So we have to move the metal to move the light to have a certain look to it. So like a one-piece wheel well, or like a very bulbous fender, like on an early American car, or even some exotics. They've got those big bulbous fenders. That is a lot of shrink work or a lot of stretch work. I prefer to work in shrink, so I would shrink the majority of that over. And once you start thinking of it more in a shrink way, everything is a shrink. There's not going to be a lot of low crown stuff unless you're talking doors or roofs. So, I mean, I shrink 90% of everything on the hammer.
Wow. How do you get precision when it's such a
Templates and patterns is the key.
Yeah.
And Mike's really good at that. So
I am very, very particular with patterning and layout.
He lays out his stuff. Basically, his whole roadmap is done on a template and a pattern. So he knows almost all of his moves that he's going to make on the panel before it even takes shape.
Okay.
Oh, that's cool.
So when you say a template, you're actually creating a 3D type template?
Yeah, so like if you lay a piece of paper is going to mimic the metal. It's a solid surface, and to get it to take shape, you're going to need to create a shrink or stretch. Well, you can't shrink and stretch paper like you can material. So when the paper is loose and you can bunch it up, that signifies I need to shrink. I have too much paper here and I need to remove it.
Right.
So you shrink it or gather it together. If you can't get the paper to touch, you need more paper to allow that to fall into place, which needs to be a stretch.
Wow.
And like Chris said, roadmap, it is essentially building our roadmap to success. It tells you everywhere you need to put a body line, an edge, a shrink, a stretch, a light line, anything needs to be on there. And it's like, if you're going, say I want you to go to a taco stand in Orange, California, and I just say, go there. It's on the corner of street X and Y. Can you get there? Maybe.
Yeah.
But if I draw you a detailed roadmap, you're not going to make any wrong turns because you're going to follow the map.
Right.
And that's exactly what we do with our patterning. And it's like I put radii on it and offset edges. Everything is super detailed and laid out. And we can get 90% of the way finished without ever touching the car or the buck.
Wow.
All based off of the information we put in our pattern.
Man, where'd you learn this?
I just figured it out over years, like watching Chris and Mark and seeing how they did things, and then trying it and like, well, this doesn't work for me, but what if I do this?
Mm-hmm.
And it just kind of evolved, and I got way more anal about it than most people.
So, I mean, you're developing the machine. Now, do you have to kind of help develop ways to work with the machine?
Well, yeah, I mean, I learned how to use it. I'm not nearly as good as Mike because he does it on a daily basis.
Right.
But I do my own stuff with the machine. I don't do anything to make money for other stuff. I just use it for my own products. But during development, I did take several classes just so I knew what I was doing in order to make sure I was making a machine that was going to do what needed to be done.
Right.
So, I mean, Faye Butler is a guy, I took his class, and he is a well-known metal shaper out east. I took his class very early on to make sure I knew what I was doing enough that when I was designing the machine, that I knew I was going to get the results that I needed.
Yeah.
So it did help for me a ton.
You talked about the trial and error process of getting the machine just the way you wanted it.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds maybe to an untrained ear like a laborious process, but it sounds kind of exciting too.
It is, yeah. I mean, because it would, I mean, I felt at that, I think I was bringing a new piece of equipment that there was nothing to compare it to.
Yeah.
So this is all brand new.
Yeah, and working with this guy, you've got now a whole new set of applications to design for
sure.
Yeah,
well, early on, like in the 2015s, you know, he was running the machine and bringing up a lot of guys, and Mike included, was bringing up great critiques like, oh, if we did this, or if you did this, or if you made this tool. So I made a lot of tweaks and modifications to the machine because these guys were using them all the time.
Oh, that's cool.
And he still is.
I still call you with bad ideas. Like, hey, why don't you do that? And you're like, I think you cringe when you see my number come up. Like, oh man, what is it going to be today?
Not every time.
Not every time.
No, I've gotten great advice, and that's great. I mean, I take it, you know, like Mike says, some of it is either I did it already and it didn't work, or we'll take it and morph it into something that's even better.
Do you think this is more close to modern metal fabricating, or the skills applied to
I think this is still
blacksmithing?
This is still the old school way, just with modern machinery.
Yeah.
So I took the same methods that they were doing during World War II, building fighters and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The processes are the same. I'm just giving a new tool to do the same processes.
Yeah, they're hammering.
Well,
pieces.
they were using just bigger, giant machines to do the same stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't reinvent the wheel as far as the process. I just created the machine that was obtainable.
Right. So,
of course.
you know, as this becomes more, people become more aware of it because of the internet, around that same time, as the community grown?
It has. So we said, like, when we started out, I said, I mean, it kind of really took off and took on a life of its own.
Yeah.
Shane Henderson, which is the marketing, the internet marketing for
Mm-hmm.
Bailey. Well, him and I kind of teamed up early on, and we took this thing to market in 2010, 2012, something like that. And at that time, the internet was pretty new, and everything was on forums.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So there was metal shaping forums, there was Metal Meet, All Metal Shaping, and there was one other I can't think of right now. But we were real heavy into forums.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we kind of debuted the machine, where people got to, hear about it, see it. Everybody's really excited. And then we did a bunch of, they're called Metal Meets at that time. I think they still have them. And there's several of them that are scattered about the country. There was one on the West Coast. There was one down in Illinois, Oblong, Illinois. And we went to those events with the machine as our debut to show people what they could do. And I think we opened a lot of eyes to a new method.
Yeah.
Open your eyes.
Well, yeah, because like the big thing is like, I didn't know that it existed when I was young, but then the Bailey stuff and the MH19, I think especially, because it's so compact. It takes up, what, a 4 foot by 4 foot by 6 foot.
Yeah, it's on basically a standard pallet.
Yeah, you can fit it through a man door. Like when I got mine, I took it through a man door into my building, and that opens up everything to the hobbyist.
Mm-hmm.
Like the guy that's like, I'd really like to give this a shot, but where am I going to find a K90 Yoder? And do I have $100,000 to buy this thing, freight it in, make the new pieces to repair it, and 2-year restoration?
Right.
Or I call up and say, hey, I want this machine, and it shows up a couple days later.
Yeah.
And like Nick Colgero, he was more of a hobbyist in the metal shaping field, and it turned into a career. I was a hot rod shop before more of a metal shaping shop.
Yeah.
And my interest in metal shaping evolved, and now I'm a metal shaping shop.
Wow.
And I think that really, I see a lot of guys that it was a hobby or a special interest,
Mm-hmm.
that it has become a career because, like Chris said, he brought a tool to market that the market was dry.
Yeah.
It's like, well, we don't have a finite number of MH19s. We'll just make more.
Yeah.
Mhm.
K90 Yoders.
There's a limit.
There's a limit.
There's-
Not being made.
Yeah.
So are people calling you now?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You
Like,
get calls from all
I get
over?
calls all over. Hey, if you run across a power hammer, let me know.
Yeah.
Like, and it's not, I get guys that want a legacy machine. I get a guy that wants, hey, if you hear of somebody that's got an MH19 that's looking to retire or they don't use it, let me know.
Wow.
And it's I mean, it's really interesting. And now the hammers like that find me. I
No
get people
kidding.
all the time call me, "Hey, I've had this thing in my barn for 50 years.
Yeah.
Would you
No
be interested?"
kidding.
I'm like, "Absolutely."
Even the
Yeah.
legacy stuff.
Yeah.
So to me, that's kind of what's neat about this industry is that while there's always new and modern,
Yeah.
there's still respect for the old
Oh, yeah.
because I mean that stuff was built to last
It
a
was, yeah,
lifetime.
definitely.
And so do you even come across that, Chris?
Not so much anymore. I mean,
Yeah.
early on I did. I came across a couple that I could have gotten, double-headed Yoders and stuff.
No
At
kidding.
a fair, at a fair price back then, which
Wow.
I probably should have grabbed. But
Yeah.
but I have no hangups. Everybody's, there's like two camps out there:
Yeah.
legacy machine or new stuff, and either you're a
Oh.
legacy guy or you're no good. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm not competing with any of that stuff.
Right,
It's like
right.
I have nothing against the big Yoders and Pettingills. I think they're awesome, great machines.
Yeah.
It's just that they're unobtainable. They don't fit in an average guy's garage,
Mhm.
and they cost a fortune to buy and to restore.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, and like
So
And I've got something to add to that, like, because people ask me all the time, like, well, why do you like Bailey equipment versus legacy stuff? I like
Yeah.
them both,
Right.
but my thought as a business owner, I have to be aware of the future.
Right.
So I buy a K90 Yoder and it's missing a part.
How do you replace it?
Can I call Mr. Yoder and say, "Hey, this is missing"?
yeah,
No.
you got to make it. Yeah.
I've got an MH19 and I've got a broken part. I call Chris and say, "I broke something. What do I do?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Chris walks me through the process.
Right.
So from a business standpoint, I can source the part, repair the part, and I can get back to making money.
Yeah.
But I do have like a really big appreciation for the early stuff.
Yeah.
And I can tell you guys a neat story if we have, I don't
Yeah,
want to
go
take over
ahead.
the whole thing.
No.
So like I'd been shaping professionally as a metal shaping shop for a while, and a guy got a hold of me. So I'm in Cincinnati, and he's like, "Hey, I'm cleaning out this building downtown, and there's a hammer hanging on the wall.
Wow.
Would you be interested?" And I'm like, "Absolutely, send me pictures of it." So he sends me pictures, and it's mounted to the main beam in this building downtown, and it's covered in dust, and they had built a wooden floor around it. And I'm like, "Man, that's kind of neat." And it looked like a Pettingill #1. So he's like, "I'll take it down and I'll bring it to you." And it had an EA Kinsey machinery tag on it, and they were a reseller based in Indianapolis and Cincinnati.
Okay.
They knocked the Pettingill tag off and put their own on it. So then I started researching the building that it came out of. So it's a 1909 Pettingill #1, and it was bought and sold to the Bellevue Brewing Company in downtown Cincinnati. Cincinnati was a huge brewing company, brewing city. So what did a brewery need a power hammer for?
Tanks.
Yeah, kettle lids, brew pots,
Yeah. Wow.
all of that stuff. And they got it 1909. They closed in 1918 from Prohibition.
Sure.
Nobody had ever used that machine until I got it in 2017,
No.
and I use it almost every day.
That's pretty funny.
Still.
It sat there for 100+ years, watching the world go by.
No kidding.
How do you get parts for that?
You'd make them.
Making a machine.
Yeah, but it's so simple because it was no bearings. It's
Yeah.
a cast iron
It's Babbitt bearings and then
No bearings.
no bearings at all.
oil. Yeah, it floats on oil. So it's a machined drive shaft with cast iron arms, and then you just pump a little oil on it and it floats on the oil.
Wow.
kidding.
They're super simple. I mean, it still has the original leather cone clutch, all the original webbing,
Yeah.
and it's just,
The webbing is original.
yeah,
too? No
I
way.
didn't change any of that stuff.
Wow.
That's
Wow.
And like I have pictures of it coming out of that building.
It belongs
Yeah.
in the Smithsonian.
Yeah, and like everybody's like, "Oh, what are you gonna do with this? Restore it?" I'm like, "I'm gonna use it."
Yeah.
So I
Ah.
cleaned it up and I use it all the time.
What do you
Yeah.
use it for?
I have it set up dedicated linear stretch,
Okay.
and like I couldn't mount it to a big steel beam. It's 100+ years old. So I found an Amish barn that had fell. It was a 150-year-old hand-hewed Amish barn, and I got a giant beam out of it, and that's what it's mounted to. So everything about it is period. And then
Yeah.
it was a line shaft machine, and they had converted it to electric motor with a General Electric gear reduction motor from Cincinnati. So it's the same motor still powers it.
No kidding.
Yeah, I left everything the same.
Well, I
And
think there's something to be said for being in a position to kind of take that
Yeah.
on. And like you said, you really can only do that once you build up your business or your skill level, whatever it may be. To have appreciation for the past doesn't necessarily mean you're selling out what's available.
Yeah, and like
in
the
today's-
legacy part of that is super cool because it's like it saw World War I come through and
Yeah.
Prohibition and World War II,
Yeah.
and it saw the world pass by.
So, having a conversation the other day with a fabricator that is involved in this particular project was replicating an old chandelier. So a lot of handwork and everything. And his point is, this stuff is the way people keep their skills alive. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
that's true.
And then you get to create something that is both not necessarily historically of the period, but people don't know that.
Yeah.
Your skill level is so good, it blends in. And we got to talking about Art Deco, and some of this machinery captures styling.
It does.
That's just, it's part of a era. It's identified with the time period it's part
It's
of.
like even now a pulley, like you see a pulley from the old days and the spokes are all organic, and now
Yeah.
you see a pulley and it's just straight.
Yeah.
And like I've got that Urco 476 and it's super swoopy and bulbous, and like now would be made out of angle iron.
Plate steel.
Yeah.
Right.
It's incredibly like it's like a time machine because you can actually visit. I had the chance to go to a fab shop near Midway Airport in Chicago, and used to have a lot of stamping presses that actually ran on those the pulleys were still
Line
up.
shafts.
Yeah.
They're still up on the roof, and you're like looking at it, and you're taken back for a little
that
bit.
stuff's awesome.
Yeah, no, it's just interesting to have this conversation about this process that's kind of new again for a new generation. I guess that kind of leads to the question: what type of reaction do you get from people maybe seeing
Well, that's
this?
my biggest, I guess my biggest pat on the back or feather in my cap is I love seeing what people make with the equipment
Yeah,
that I design. So everything that Mike makes, I mean, I follow him like, yes, like. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
Yeah.
you know, he's using my stuff daily and making awesome stuff. And so like even this guy that's teaching, Nick Calgaro, he bought one of my power hammers, and the stuff that he's making is awesome. He's making airplane parts with it, motorcycle stuff, and he's contracting himself out. And I just love seeing the things he's making. Now it's opened up a whole new avenue for him.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really interested, Mike, to hear you talk about that whole self-taught aspect of your career.
Yeah.
So a lot of people with a lot of capacity, a lot of know-how, but they might be a little intimidated. Like, I don't even have a 2-year college degree, or I don't have any training whatsoever. How do I even break into this? What would you say to somebody who's got deep interest in this, but maybe not a lot of education or
Just do it.
Just do it.
Yeah, I mean, because the biggest thing is, I barely graduated high school. Like, I did well at trade school because I'm a very hands-on person. But bookwork, like, show me where algebra is going to help me out every day. To me, it's useless.
I use it all the time.
Yeah, but you're you.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, yeah, I just it does nothing for me. So it's my biggest thing is I'm not smart enough to know that I can't.
Well,
Like, if somebody somewhere can
Yeah.
do it, well, why can't I?
Mhm.
I'm not afraid to fail. Failure is going to be your biggest motivator and your biggest teacher.
Mhm.
Because when I screw up a panel that has taken me 40 hours and it's junk now, I'm going to learn, like, okay, big mistake, don't ever do that again.
Right.
And that's how I've learned over the years is I have ruined a lot of really cool stuff, but I've learned how to save it or how to not make those same mistakes. And that's what's helped me grow. And then too many people get complacent. Like, I'm good enough.
Yeah.
There's no such thing. You always have to be hard on yourself. Like, you can be acceptable and you can be satisfied, but you can't be happy.
Yeah.
Like this is like prime example. I'm doing some 1946 Mack truck fenders. They turned out really nice, 100% scratch built. He couldn't find them. I'm happy with the way they turned out, but they could be way better. I'm always pushing to, like, next time I'm going to do this different or I'm going to do this better. I know that perfection is not reality,
Yeah.
but I want to get as close to that perfection as humanly possible. And then on the next one, I'm going to get a little bit closer.
Yeah. What
You-
material are you working with for those?
That's 18 gauge steel.
No kidding. Wow.
Yeah, I'm never 100% satisfied either. There's always something that I could do
Yep.
better or
Mhm.
make better or improve on.
Oh yeah.
And it sounds weird, but it's a lifestyle. Like, you don't need to be so hard on yourself to where you're making yourself depressed and you're comparing yourself to others, but you have to have a healthy appreciation for what other people can do.
Oh,
Like, I
yeah.
look at people that I think are way better craftsmen than myself, and you could have two different responses is, oh, they're so good, I'll never be that good. Or, that is something I aspire to be. And you chase that.
Absolutely. Writing's the same way.
Yeah.
There's always a better writer.
Yeah.
There's always someone
And I wanted to backtrack a little bit, like with Chris talking about, like, how rewarding it is to see people make stuff with his equipment. It's interesting because over the years getting to know Chris, like, he's a big aircraft guy, and I've made parts for the Memphis Belle and Wright-Patterson Museum on his machines, German Focke-Wulf landing doors, like all the stuff that interests him. I'm making years later, and then he gets to share that.
Yeah.
You know, he came down, went through Wright Patterson's back storage room and saw,
Okay.
you know, stuff
Yeah, it was
waiting
great.
to be
Yeah.
restored. And
Oh,
It was
wow.
one of the best museum tours I've ever gotten. We got in the back door.
yeah,
Yeah,
like
it was good.
I work with the restoration department a lot, and
Mhm.
I'm like, hey, Chris, we'll go up there and they'll take you through the non-public stuff.
Oh, wow.
It was so
How big
bad
is
that
that?
he went to his car and sat in his truck for a while because I was taking too long.
Yeah, yeah.
So are they like full on like airplanes?
Yeah,
and
they
needing-
restore. It's all military or mostly
So it's
military
almost like a
stuff.
hangar type
Oh,
thing
it's
situation we're
it's
talking
like 5
about.
hangars.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, and it's I mean, right on Wright Patterson Air Force Base.
So
in
this
Dayton.
was during World War II. This was a big deal.
Oh, the Falcons
And actually, we
and-
went into we went to see that press.
Yeah.
Was it a 200-ton
yeah.
press
Wow.
that was still there from World War II era?
No kidding.
Yeah.
Oh
Mhm.
my!
That's awesome.
That they made airplane parts on back in the day, and the whole floor in this hangar. We're getting off subject here, but the whole floor in this hangar was ingrained wood.
Yeah. Like
Whoa.
put in long ways, right?
Put in long ways.
I've seen that,
Ingrained.
yeah.
The whole hangar floor. I mean, I don't know how many square feet this was, but it had to have been 100,000, maybe more, 100,000
Heavy-
square feet of wood on
Heavy
end.
duty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was,
I've seen that
Wow.
in an old school Chicago like old factory.
yeah, that's
It's
what.
crazy.
Yeah, it was really really rewarding to go through that place.
Yeah, and like
Yeah.
the cool thing with Wright Pat is all of the historic stuff's there, but they don't fly them anymore. They're
Right.
display pieces.
Right.
Yeah.
But then we have the Tri-State Warbird Museum, like where the Falk Wolf is. They fly weekly.
No kidding.
So they're like,
Way.
hey, we have these landing doors that keep cracking. Can you make them? So made German Falk Wolf landing
No
doors
kidding.
so they can
Yeah.
continue to fly the plane. And like we're doing stuff for the Spitfires, and I've done seats. Like, hey, we need to recreate this seat to where it can win at shows and be historically accurate,
Right.
but still functional to where we can fly it.
Man.
And that
I
stuff's
love
really
how
cool.
Cornfield Customs is doing this custom work for like, vintage like war fighting.
Oh yeah, I
planes
mean,
and stuff. It's awesome.
we get into all kinds of funky stuff,
Yeah.
and it's it's not all cars or hot rods.
Right,
It's,
right, right.
it's anything to do with metal. I've done
But people get the word gets out though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've done architecture stuff. I've done art pieces. If it's metal and needs bent or
Yeah.
shaped, I'll do it.
So that's a good segue. Early on in the metal shaping thing, a lot of our power hammer sales went to people that were making organic flowers
Mhm.
out of metal
Oh
and
wow.
fish.
Yeah.
Stamped out fish that they would form with the hammers, but the
Wow.
flower, the petals, they would make big giant leaf petals
Yeah.
all out of metal, and they'd use the power hammer for it. So
Sure.
a lot of in the beginning was a lot of artsy,
Yeah.
crafty type work like that. It was
That's
pretty cool.
interesting. Yeah. No, it's got to be kind of exciting to see.
Yeah, it was. It was something that I had no idea. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. I
Yeah.
never would have even thought that would be a market for it.
Where would you gauge like the market nowadays for this technology?
I mean, we lean heavy on the car world yet.
Mhm.
I think that's where the most activity is, but not saying that other art area isn't a big market as well.
Yeah.
I'm not involved in the marketing anymore. I'm out of that stuff, so
Yeah.
I'm not really sure where they're
Right.
pushing it.
Right.
Yeah, and I found like people that take my class. One guy, he does copper roofs.
Wow.
Like you wouldn't think a copper roof guy needs to do that
Yeah.
because you're not really shaping on a copper roof. But it's
Doing
like,
a lot of lines.
yeah, it's a
Right.
lot of straight lines. But then he'll be like, well, I'm doing a rounded gable.
Yeah.
Or we have to do a weather vane, or I don't know what the little caps are, stuff that's got a lot
Yeah.
of detail and shape. And then it's like, well, now we're doing gargoyles and all this stuff out of copper. It just evolves. They
Yeah.
want to
Wow.
step their game up, so it's not straight pleats and folds. It's
We're
art.
not doing gables anymore. We're doing gargoyles.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
Wow.
it evolves, and it's really interesting to see that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really
What have been some of your favorite projects over the year to use your hammer?
Projects, business wise,
Or stand out,
personal-wise?
yeah. Either way.
I guess I'm just going to lean into this one a little bit. Probably my most favorite machine to date is the 4x2 mandrel bender that I built, and that's to bend rectangular tubing.
Oh
Mhm.
wow.
And that Mike uses.
I saw that on Instagram.
So that one I always wanted to make. I always wanted to make it, and I called it a chassis bender. But it's a machine to bend chassis rails, and that's exactly what they're being used for. There's
Yeah.
a handful of companies throughout the country that's using that machine to bend chassis rails, and that one is very satisfying to
Mhm.
me.
I saw a picture of that. I don't know, was it Facebook or
Yeah, Facebook or Instagram. I post a lot
yeah.
of pictures and videos of it.
I saw that, and that's a difficult bend
Yeah.
to do well, especially if you're missing the seam.
Yeah,
Yeah, but that's a fantastic example of hard to do stuff that
Mhm.
that
And I mean,
finds
Chris's machines just make it easy. Like,
yeah.
you know, it does the job and it repeats the job every time.
And then on a personal level, I built an airplane, and that's probably my favorite personal project.
Wow.
So airplane from scratch. So it's a wooden plane. It's called a Peton pole, and it's based off of a 1929 design, built from plans.
No kidding.
And,
Have you been up in it?
actually, I didn't fly it. My instructor at the time has flown it, so it's been up 6 times.
No kidding.
But I personally never got into it. Life got in the way at that time. And I retired the plane just recently, and it's going to go in my son's new factory, and it's going to hang in the lobby.
Wow.
So,
Wow. It's very Wright brothers like.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Wow. What about you?
Man, I've got a lot of neat stuff. Like same thing. It could be business wise and personal. I think one of the most unique, we'll say cars, because like the airplane stuff's super cool. Like
Yeah.
it's super cool to make stuff for Wright-Patterson and, you know, the Warbird Museum. And I've done some government prototype stuff that it is what it is. And
Right.
that's neat, but I don't get to see it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't know what it is. But then like I did a 1961 Aston Martin DB4 Zagato quarter.
Oh, I saw that on
Yeah,
mine
the
too.
guy road
Wow.
raced it, hit a wall, and it's an all polished aluminum Zagato. And it showed up, and I built a new quarter, polished the whole car, put it back together. And I mean, it was an amazing piece to have in my shop. So that was really cool and rewarding.
I can't imagine running that thing into a wall.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
it'd be sick.
Oh, I mean, I thought it was the coolest thing ever.
I hit a
Like-
Honda on the side of the interstate.
Yeah, I mean, I'm one of those guys just like him. Like, I don't want to say idiot, but like I love driving race cars and
Yeah, yeah.
love driving race cars on the street and doing stuff we're not supposed to do. Like we went out earlier and we're just
Yeah, I drove his GT40 before. It was great.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, so
that's yours.
That's
Yeah.
the- oh,
Yeah, and I
Oh,
mean, I just
wow.
took a 500-mile road trip on a GT40 race car in the rain.
in 2 hours.
No, I mean, it was still an 8-hour drive. It was rough.
It's called the Cannonball Run.
Yeah, but I mean, we took that car 1,800 miles last year in the heat. You know, I mean, I've driven Model A open top cars across country in the rain. I've got a Shelby Daytona. We did 30,000 miles in a season on it. And then like I land speed race. So like personal car wise, I have a 27 Model T with a flathead in it. And I designed and built this car in 14 months. And we unveiled it at Grand National Roadster Show. And it's a race car.
Wow.
And people are like, this is not a race car. This is a show car.
Mhm.
And we take it out to the most corrosive surface on the planet and race a show car.
That's
and then you
funny.
got to take it all apart and wash every
Yeah.
last inch of it.
Yeah, and it's like the majority of it is all hand-shaped aluminum. It's got a polished nose, and it, you know, all the bolts are indexed. Everything's coated. It's a show car, and it's got a flathead V8 in it, so it's not fast. But we've been 146 mile an hour in it so far.
That's funny.
And the rewarding part is Bonneville is so hard for people to get interested in. It's far, it's hard, it's expensive, and the cars are expensive. So for me, if somebody comes up and they're like, man, what would it take to run a car at Bonneville? And I'm like, you pay $100 to have the driver changed and you can get your rookie running this car. Like last season, we put 5 brand new drivers through the car. And that's super rewarding because I'm giving you your first shot at Bonneville for nothing.
yeah.
And I love that car because that's what it was built for. It's the practice car.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's,
And then you're building another land speed car for real.
yeah, I'm
Or
building
two
a,
of them.
yeah, I'm building a Streamliner. I'm building a Lakester. And then I'm building a 29 Model A that's got history to it and a historic engine in it. And that one's going to be ridiculous.
Wow.
I've
And
just,
will you take it out the same way?
Yep.
You out again?
Mhm.
Wow.
yeah, like it has an engine in it that George Poteet, the land speed racer, he set a record in 2005 at 325 mile an hour
Oh.
with a 2.2 Ecotec 4-cylinder, 1,300 horsepower. So I've got that engine in a 29 Model A. And I mean, it's ridiculous. It doesn't even make boost until 6,500 RPM, and then it goes to like 90 pounds of boost.
90?
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, I mean, it's a light switch car, and it's just a neat piece of history. And the car had set 20 records on its own before I'd even got it and put
Right.
the engine with the car.
Wow.
So another
Yeah.
car that I'm proud of that Mike and I worked on together back in 2015, we were doing a car build at my shop, which was Rusch Machine Design at the time. And we wanted to put together a team of really talented builders and do a week build. And I had a 1930 Ford, and we made a complete tube chassis for it, put a V12 BMW engine in it.
Oh.
And we made the car from nothing, chopped it, did everything in a week's time, and made it into a roller. And then it was me, Mike, and then I'm trying to think, maybe 5 other guys.
Yeah, Kyle was there, Bob Bleed, Troy, and then we had Jimmy Shine.
Jimmy Shine, yeah.
Yeah, there were a bunch of guys that came in, and I mean, we just
And it happened, huh?
It happened, it turned out great. It was a great week. Obviously, the car wasn't done after that week.
Right.
We got it into a roller state, but in the months that passed afterwards, I did finish the car, and it's like one of my favorite cars. It's awesome.
yeah, and that week, Bill, like there's a lot of really good memories and a lot of rough memories. Like I remember, like me and Kyle, I can't sit still.
Yeah.
So it'd be like 3 o'clock in the morning, and me and Kyle were the only ones in your shop. Everybody else was home sleeping, and like my feet hurt so bad, I took my boots off, and I was working in socks.
Yeah.
And like we'd leave at 4 a.m, go get an hour's sleep at the hotel down the street, and then we'd be back an hour later for 6-7 days straight.
So they made brand new quarters for the car, both left and
On
right hand
site.
quarters, complete full quarters,
Yeah.
Oh,
When we
wow.
chopped it.
and
so-
chopped it.
Yeah, so we got in a day early, and we're like, when can we get started on this? And Chris was like, I don't care, whenever. So we laid it out, and we chopped it the first night before anybody got there.
Oh, wow.
Like we had it all tacked together, and we're welding stuff when everybody came in, and then it was like you said, new door skins, new quarters.
Yeah, and then so half the crew was working on body stuff, the other half of the crew was working on chassis stuff, building the chassis, getting the motor mounted, suspension, all that. They were working on body stuff, and then at the end of the week, we mated the two together and pushed it outside.
Wow.
Oh my God.
And you still have it?
I do.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Do you take it out any?
Yeah, I take it out all the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Are you
it's great.
racing it any?
No, it's not really race car. It's more show
Yeah.
car-ish.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but it's fun to drive.
I'll say I hear V12 and it's
Yeah.
faster than anything I've ever owned.
You
Yeah.
keep that up in Sturgeon
I do.
Bay?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yep, it's sitting up there right now.
Awesome.
Yeah. And I'm trying to get Chris to come out to Bonneville, and I'll throw him in one of the race cars.
Yeah. Um,
It sounds both like an invitation and a threat.
Yeah,
yeah.
it's 100% threat, but that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
We'll get you out
I,
there.
I'm full of bad decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're still here. So
Yeah.
that's what
Yeah.
Not afraid to make a mistake.
That's about to
Oh, yeah.
say.
That might
Yeah.
not be the greatest
Things
thing.
are working out
Yeah.
okay. Where can they find out more about you, people in our audience?
I'm on Insta. I don't do anything Facebook wise. I'm on Instagram primarily, and it's at Chris_Rusch.
Gotcha.
RUSCH.
Awesome. How about you, Mike?
I'm Cornfield Customs on everything. So I've got a YouTube channel that's dedicated to instructional videos. So very detailed how to make fenders, how to make quarters, how to make
Awesome.
patterns, chassis layout. We do like a Monday live event where I answer questions that people have during the week. So YouTube's a big one, Instagram, Facebook, any social media platform I'm on. And it's just Cornfield Customs on all of it.
I know that Viper is connected to you and your sons. Why
It
don't you give
is.
us a little background on
Yeah,
that?
so Viper kind of was a shop that I started. So when I sold my company, Rusch Machine Design, I started another company kind of right out of the gate, and that was Viper Industrial. And I did that because I didn't know what I was going to do.
Right.
I just got done the day-to-day stuff. I knew I wasn't done, but I didn't know what I was going to do, so I needed a company, and I wanted
Mhm.
something that was catchy, and I thought Viper fit the bill. So a year goes by, and I'm doing stuff in my shop, setting my shop up, doing stuff that I enjoy, and I was always hated the shop stools that you could get. And one day was too much. I don't remember what happened. Either I broke it, wheel snapped off or whatever. I'm like, that's it. I'm making a good shop stool now. I dropped everything. And it was funny because my son was going to college at the time, and we were going through a thrift store, and I was getting him a bed frame or whatever it was. And there just happened to be these big casters that were $1 a piece. I'm like, that's what I'm going to use for my shop chair. So I bought those casters and came home, and I don't remember the exact time frame, but I whipped up this shop chair, and it's awesome. Had an Acme screw on it, big wheels, went over everything. I had a local upholsterer make me a nice leather seat for it. That was my shop chair. Well, fast forward a little bit, my son gets done with college. He comes up and he's looking for something to do. And he's like, oh, Dad, he goes, I can sell these. He says that was kind of the beginning of the Instagram marketing and how you
Right.
can sell stuff online and that type of thing. And he took it to a level that I never dreamed of. So they took the Viper chair and ran with it. And so I had to give up Viper, so they took my
I can't keep anything.
So I passed it off. They got Viper, and now they're running with it, and I couldn't be happier. So
What are your sons' names?
Dylan and Dane.
Yeah. So if you want to find out more about Viper chairs, I think Josh Welton had a conversation with them, and you can find the video on YouTube.
And Viper is spelt with a Y, so VYPER industrial.com.
There you go. Thanks a lot, gentlemen, for joining us. It was educational and informative and interesting.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's great to have you.
Usually all the modifiers they use to describe this podcast.
Okay.
If you have any comments, complaints, criticisms, send them to podcast@fmamfg.org. Please recommend, review, rate this podcast. Alert your neighbors, friends, family. And we thank you for joining us. And once again, thanks to Bailey Industrial for having us here during Metal Shaping Day, Metal Shaping Fest. Once again, proving I can't end this correctly. Thank you for joining us. Bye.
The Fabricator Podcast is a production of Fabricators and Manufacturers Association, located in Elgin, Illinois. The show is hosted by Dan Davis and the staff of FMA Communications. The podcast is produced by Gareth Slager and recorded and edited by Griffin Hammond and Dana Weicker. Sales support provided by Andy Flando. Additional production support by Elizabeth Gavin, Mike Owens, Billy Kulpa, Pat Simon, Brandon Geyer, and me, Sarah Spring. Email us at podcast@fmamfg.org. Thank you for listening.
You should have like AI just use my mouth being like one of those talking dummies, ventriloquist dummies.
Try to keep
It's
it
the
light.
equivalent of somebody you boring your plane and me just crashing it into the. It's like, oh wow, he's doing really well. Look at him. Oh no.